And here we are. Episode 24 of the Room 9 podcast is here. I am actually pretty pumped up about this episode, where I have a wonderful conversation with a wonderful human being, and Constantino, who is the CEO of Horizon Health. And I hope you guys enjoy this episode coming up. We're all over the place. It's the first time I met her, so I'm just getting to know her. So we were talking about both sides of my story, her story, a little bit about Horizon Health and Horizon Village out there in Sanborn and that whole community. But before we get into that, I wanted to share with everybody I have my first hater / crazy person online that is attacking me. And it felt special. I didn't think that was going to come for many years down the road with this podcast, but it happened. And there's this guy that got voted out. I'm not going to use his name, but he got voted out of the Oxford house I'm in for stealing food, and he couldn't keep up with the rent, and there's a whole slew of things. So we ended up asking him to leave. And he must have found the podcast or whatever on the internet, and he is just throwing obscenities after obscenities on there. And I thought I would share that with you guys because I thought it'd be till I was a lot more popular than what I am now before I started getting the haters, for lack of a better word, on the internet. So I thought that was quite humorous to have that. His plan is to sabotage the podcast and share with all of you guys that I am fake and a liar. So I thought that was quite humorous. But anyway, get on our website, room9podcast.com. Fill out a contact form, please. Please. We also have the blog that is going. I'm in the middle of a new one, so hopefully that's up in the next few days. And I think that's it. The support page. You guys can help us out with the website fees, RSS feeds, advertising, anything helps. And we can get this message out and about to as many people as possible. You know, the more feedback I'm getting about this, the more encouraged I am, the more motivated I am to stay disciplined in this, because I think it's helping a lot more people than I think it is. I mean, the number one person it's helping is me. But I've been just getting amazing feedback from people. So even if you can't do a support thing, send me a message. Let me know that this is helping you. That's always encouraging. That always keeps me going. Those are the most important things to me when it comes down to it, is that people are getting help and people are encouraged from this as much as I am getting the help and encouragement. So anyway, I won't keep you anymore because this is a great podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening. You guys are awesome. And I cannot wait to talk to you again next week. All right. Enjoy episode 24 in Constantino. Yes, now you have wisdom.
Yes, absolutely true. Wiser now than I was at 30 for sure.
Which, yeah, I guess that is the plan. Well, you'd hope is the plan for most people.
Yes.
And you get wiser as you get older.
Ignorance is bliss, though, when you're younger.
I find as I get older, ignorance is still bliss. There's so many times where I'm like, man, if I could just go back to being an ignorant human being, life would be so much easier.
Yeah. It's not the way it works.
Nope. I always think of that scene in The Matrix where, if you've seen the movie.
A long time ago.
Yeah, where the one guy, he's getting like plugged back into the Matrix and he doesn't want to remember anything. Yep. And I remember he said ignorance was bliss as he's eating the steak. And I'm like, I've always thought about that line since I've seen that movie. And as I've become more self-aware.
That's why kids are so happy.
Yep. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Just completely in the moment.
Yeah.
And I know one of the best compliments I've had on this podcast is somebody messaged me and said, it was like I was just having coffee with you guys. It was awesome. And I was like, that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
From the get-go, was just that relaxed.
It's very conversational and easy to listen to.
And that's what I wanted because...
That's why I've tried not to get nervous about it. I'm like, it's just a conversation.
Yes, and it's not like I'm popular at all, so it's less pressure than ever. Although, I mean, I have been blessed. Like I think I was going to tell you earlier that, I mean, I just had this and my sister's ancient laptop that I started with. And I originally started the podcast with somebody that I was a roommate with.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I think I heard your very first one.
And then he kind of just started getting back to full-time work, and he just lost touch with it pretty much. I'll leave it at that. So it became me, but that's all I had was this, 2 crappy mics and crappy laptop where I was recording. And then I was just taking that and putting it up on YouTube. So that was it. And this is only since October. Like, the story seems like sometimes feel like it should be like years. And just from people donating money. I've gotten a soundboard. I've gotten brand new mics.
Oh, that's awesome.
I got a brand new laptop.
That's great.
Complete blessing after blessing. And then...
Are you incorporated?
No. I mean, right now I'm on just, I can accept stuff on my website, one-time donations. And then I don't know if you know what Patreon is. So it's kind of like a social media site, but people can upload whatever they're doing, and then people can become patrons and donate monthly.
Wow.
So like the objective is to get people to subscribe to your page and give you money monthly, and usually you give something back in return for them, giving monthly to you.
So do you have to count that as income then? Like, is that going to be a problem for you?
I'm going to find that out. So right now I haven't looked into it. I looked on the Patreon site, and the tax thing was only for California, and that you had to claim something. I mean, I'm only probably bringing in $250 a month right now, if that.
I guess
so I'm not really I haven't really got into that thinking yet. Hopefully in the future I do. I mean, my whole thought was, and I got a whole letter on there on my website about it as well. Who's going to, my thinking is, if I seen this, I'd be like, I'm not giving this junkie any money. Like, what is he just going to go on a run with the money I get him? So I know it's going to take time.
Well, if you incorporate, or trust me, I'm not an expert, but you can go after grants. This is such a grantable.
Yes.
You could actually be supported doing this work legitimately.
That is my hope and goal one day.
Okay.
That is, yes. That is something I have to look into for sure.
Yeah.
Because that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, just writing blogs, and I don't even know if this can be considered a job. That's great.
Well, I think it's an important job. I mean, I don't want to get into this if you want to talk about it later, but I think that this is exactly kind of the most important piece and that sometimes is missing. So, of course, it would be easy for an organization like mine to kind of co-opt you and come in, I can support you, you can do this, and I can. But I think your independent voice is relevant and very important. So, and in a way you shouldn't be associated.
Yeah, I spent time over the last few weeks, or I should say month, taking Google Analytic classes and Microsoft Excel classes. Just found them free online. And my original thought was to be able to take all the info from my website and podcast and get into presentation and go to places like Horizons or Best Self or whatever. Be like, all right, this is my audience.
Right.
This is who's listening. This is how many per month, and try to get sponsors. But that thought always comes in. Now, once you get a sponsor, if they don't like something you said or something you're doing or don't agree, and it can be manipulated, and then
I do think that getting a sponsorship doesn't mean that it's a constituency that you have to kowtow to. So it's not a bad idea. I'd be more worried about you from a tax obligation.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, I think the same thing, too, when politicians get donations. We're not giving you this money to do this or say this, but we'll give you the money if you do say it, kind of thing.
Well, the bulk of your message is always going to be important to us. Like in the detail, we might not like what you say, but it's still the truth. And the most important message is the one that we all support.
Which is true, yes.
Yeah.
Which is basically us to be out there to help. I mean, my greatest feedback has come from family members of addicts.
Right.
And have absolutely just loved it.
We're promoting you with we just started a kind of a family and consumer advisory board. It's very small. In fact, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it later. But this speaks to a lot of the families that are in there. So we just kind of sent out your...
Beautiful. Yeah. Well, that's what I want. What's her? Christina Pearl. She's always asking me, do you care if I was like, no, please share it. You don't have to ask me. Just share it. That's what it's there for. I want everybody to get out there. I need more people sharing it, actually.
Right.
That's when she asked me that. I just always like, you don't have to ask me anymore. I told her one time. Of course, you can share this, and you can share any other future ones.
Right.
You don't
Well,
ever have to
I
ask.
didn't know if I could share it either because I don't know like what kind of association, if you want to be an arm's length from any of us or.
Not at all. I'm going in.
You're apolitical.
I have no no filters. I have nothing. I will work with people. Have a gift of if the people that I'm around or working with or associated with, I find what we agree on and I work with that.
Right.
Those are some of my leadership qualities that I've found in myself and had to learn to embrace. But
right.
And I think it was on the Horizon Health page. I wrote it down, your quote on leadership. And this is totally like side note, but because something I found in myself I've always liked being in the background, like that guy with the assists, not the points, pretty much. It's something I've had to do because I have this natural gift of leadership and to be able to find the good qualities in people and how to bring those to the top and with each individual. And I had to learn to embrace that. It was one of the biggest things. I always knew it. I remember telling my counselor, Robert, at Horizon Village, I know I have these qualities. I just don't want them. Like I want them to be over here. I don't want that weight of being in charge or leading people and having that responsibility. Like I just would rather be in the background and do my own thing. But I did want to read it because I loved it. And it was the challenge of leadership is to be strong but not rude, be kind but not weak, be bold but not bully, be thoughtful but not lazy, be humble but not timid, be proud but not arrogant, have humor but without folly. And I loved it. And I wanted that. I don't know if you came up with that quote or if it was a quote from somebody else.
And I'm sorry, I don't know who to attribute it to, but it really speaks to my philosophy of leadership. And, there's a responsibility that comes with leadership, and how you execute that responsibility is so important.
Yeah.
And it's kind of consistent with my personality. I don't like to be abrasive or loud or bully. It was just not me. I like you. I like to find the common ground and how can we all work together. So.
Yeah, and use them. And like I said, as I was stalking you on the internet yesterday, from the few hours I've spent kind of reading up on you and the things you've accomplished in your life, I just got this sense of incredible humility from you. Just from reading about you. She has this humility about her and this gentleness, but yet this sternness when she needs to be stern with people.
Probably what people have said about me that's not really true is that I'm aggressive. I think I've been pretty aggressive in my business, but towards accomplishing a goal because that's my job. And certainly assertive, but really not an aggressive person. It's not.
And I have found as I've worked on my assertiveness that when you are assertive in the correct manner with people, they're usually their ego goes crazy and will take it as aggression. And there's nothing you can do about that. I mean, there's nothing I have learned. Like I have to learn to let those things go when I'm with somebody. Yeah. And I just say in a very gentle way, hey man, do you think you can not do this next time? Or you said this and it bothered me, and they get offensive, and but there's nothing I can do. I've learned to double check myself. I did this the right way, right? Okay, there's nothing else I can do anymore.
I think that's been my check has been, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the rightest thing that I'm supposed to be doing? And if that answer is yes, I'll try to help people understand it, but otherwise I have to pursue and go in that direction.
And there's sometimes you can't. Right. You can't. There's so many people out there that you run into that don't. They're just like, nope, I don't want to hear it. And there's so many other issues that could cause that train of thought as well.
Yeah.
When you
I don't get distracted, though.
That's important. Yeah. Yes. Yes, that's easy to do.
There's a lot of noise.
Yes, there always is. And I have found the more successful you become in your life, the more noise goes on around you that people want to make. And it's important not to get down into that. Right. I mean, even in, now being over a year clean, and even the small success of my podcast so far, I mean, there's people that I still owe money to that I've taken advantage of in my past that are, well, where'd you get money for equipment and stuff like that? Yeah. And one of my biggest things, and I set up, was that I cannot touch any money that is donated to this podcast without the supervision of somebody.
Oh.
And that's why, that's why I have this whole letter on my website about that. Now, my girlfriend, Christine, who is not an addict and who's stuck with me through thick and thin, she is in, so if I need any money, it's in her account. I cannot touch it. And there's receipts, and she's with me, and whatever it is, it goes through her.
That's great.
And that's one thing I've said. So I'm not going to spend this money on my bills or any of the clothes or new shoes.
Or who you owe.
Yes, or who I owe money to.
Right.
And that was one thing, too. Like, I found you have to have that patience when it comes to repaying people. I mean, I had to take care of myself so I didn't end up back into the mess I was in by rushing back to work, whatever it may be. So
this process helps others, but it also helps you.
That's number one person it helps is me. And I've never been a fan of the self-help so much. I tried it. I got a sponsor and the 12 steps and started going through those. It irritated me. On a side note, it reminded me, it was just, for me, it's analogous to Christianity. And I grew up in that, and it's just been banter down my face, and I had to step away from it. I was like, I can't do that. It frustrated me more than it helped me, essentially, is what happened. So, but I know, again, like I shared with you before, if I'm not, I need to constantly be on my recovery every day. I need to be aware
Remember
of that.
when, and the slogans are awesome. And the steps are great life steps even.
Yeah, anybody can, get help from them. I think for me, when it came down to the ritualistic, dogmatic parts of it, I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I did a podcast with my buddy Matt. I did a podcast with him, and whatever keeps you clean, whatever keeps you in your recovery and positive and helps you change your life, then that's your way of recovery, and that works for you. And that should be for anybody. I know some people need to be immersed in self-help, go to a meeting every day, do the 12 steps, have a sponsor tell them everything to do. And other people go to, refuge recovery. And I like the more mindful approach, meditation, and, the whole Eastern philosophical kind of take on it.
Yeah.
Which is where I like, that's the way to go. So everybody has their own path, everybody has their own story. And that's something I've learned to let people be, once again, in their own ways. But I guess getting back onto talking about your role at Horizon Village.
I'd rather talk about you. But.
Which we've done a lot about that. But I like going back and forth, too. Like I said, I like keeping that conversation kind of vibe. I personally had an amazing experience at Horizon Village.
Great.
I did not find, I was in the actual Horizon Village building, and I did not have one counselor there that I thought was just collecting a paycheck. I've had
great group of people,
just amazing group of people. Even the TAs and everything else were just awesome. Like, you could tell they were all there because they wanted to help. They wanted to be there and do what they can do. And I think you have a great team out there. As far as who I've met in the Horizon Village,
I think the whole company is like that. People will say, Horizon has been so successful. Like, what do you credit the success to? And I really have to say it's who we hire. It's the people that work here. This is just, it's nothing without the people. And the people are the ones who carry out the mission, who act right, who truly care. They are the best people. Very proud of them. I was out at Horizon Village yesterday giving a tour, and when I see the people working, it kind of blows me away. I walk away and my heart is full, and I'm like, this is a good day.
Proud. Yeah.
I feel very proud of them.
Yeah, because I look at it like almost a football team. Like the head coach isn't so much involved with the players. It's his job or her job to get the right coaches underneath.
Right. Well, I think, I've played every role on the team, right?
Yeah, so walk me through that. Where did that start?
Oh, my God. Started a million years ago, maybe before you were born. In the kind of mid-'80s, I was hired here as a counselor to develop the substance abuse programs.
And how big was the company then?
Oh, my God, tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple $1 million, maybe 80 staff. I don't even know. It was very small. Everybody knew everybody. We were a very young company, all of us young in age. The company started in 1975, so I was...
Really? Okay.
I came in 1986, so 11 years after it started.
I was born, by the way.
Okay. like most young people, it was the next job I was going to. And what happened for me here is I got to do the work that I loved, developing programs, hiring staff, kind of designing what we wanted it to look like, although I was a counselor. So that was my job. I was a substance abuse counselor.
Really? Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, whether I'm the head coach or the owner now, through the development of the company, I've been all of those jobs. I've been on all the teams, I've played all the positions, I've worked my way up through, kind of operations and leadership and
You know the whole scheme,
I knew.
You knew.
I'm no longer, honestly, the expert in what we do. I have experts, and that's okay because I believe in them and I trust them, and I need everybody who's out there playing on the team to become the best expert in what they do. And they amaze me with what they know. That's not me anymore. Yeah.
Well, again, that's what makes a great leader, is having that knowledge, that experience of who to put in the right positions to be successful.
I do that well.
Yes. And that's very obvious you do that well, considering the success of Horizon Health in general, which is important. And again, talking about that noise on the outside, you have the people pointing like, she doesn't even know how to do this or this or that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's hysterical when you hear that noise, I guess for lack of a better term, that people just are clueless, really, when it comes down to it. The work that you've put in.
I think that there is a recognition in the industry that Horizon people are very well trained, very skilled, very dedicated. They are honestly the best in the business, and maybe everybody would say this about their company, but I look at the effort. You can do a job and do it well, or you can do a job and do it with excellence and always an eye on how it can be better. And that's the Horizon way. That's how they are.
How to constantly having that eye open on how to improve.
How to improve, how to make it better, how to make a meaningful difference every day. So nobody's just punching the clock here. Nobody. The clinical staff is about 50% of the company. The rest of the company, they work in support to clinical staff. They work in technical jobs. They do, and they're all trying their best every day. So I appreciate that effort.
Yeah, and that was the only my only experience so far.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Dealing with Horizons, I'm literally trying to think of a time when somebody was rude to me.
Oh my gosh!
And I can't. I mean, really, there's not one time. I spent 3.5 months. I mean, maybe a week or so more than that.
Well, one of the core values of the company is respect, and the healthcare system. I don't know how much interface you've had with the general healthcare system, but when it's not good, it's very bad. And
the little I know, I at least know that. Yes.
Yeah. And two things I think are very important when we're delivering care and when you're employing people is respect is first, and intentionality. Just being intentional about what you're doing. So sometimes you can see it in healthcare or any industry when you're just kind of being run through the paces. Somebody's completing a form, or nobody's looking at you, and you're just somebody to be dealt with. That's not intentional. We got to lift our head up and look at people and say, who is this person? What are they all about? Where are they coming from? It's not that hard to do. And, the other thing is respect. So we talk a lot about respect. You can be the most skilled, brilliant person, but if you don't know how to treat other people with respect, and it starts with coworker to coworker, and I tell people, you will never see me be disrespectful to you or anybody else, and there is zero tolerance for disrespect. So you have to treat everybody right. And, sometimes it's hard. People come in under a lot of duress, and it's okay. But we can still be respectful in our response to that.
Yeah, and I think the 3.5 months that I've spent, it's difficult when you have, like you said, a resident at one of your inpatients that is just a pain in the ass, and it is difficult sometimes to keep that to keep that line or where it should be, keep up to that respectful line.
Right. So I also ask the same of patients. The deal we'll give is you're going to get all the respect. I just ask for that back. Sometimes if people are truly not in a good place, it's hard for them, and that's different. Can you and will you are always the two different things. If you can, you need to be respectful, right? So when you think about Horizon Village, you lived in a very tight community with 50 other people who were in the same. That's not easy.
No, it is not.
And if everybody is not being respectful in that kind of environment, peer to peer and staff to resident, it would be a miserable and horrible situation. So
yeah, things can get out of hand very quickly.
Things can get out of hand
when you have 50 recovering addicts in one building.
It's not easy, and the fact that people do it is a credit to them and their willingness to work together, towards a common goal, and really your focus on saving your own life. So that's awesome. And everybody comes in for different reasons, as you know. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But once you make that decision, it doesn't matter what reason that brought you there, right? You're there, and now you gotta
do it.
You gotta do it.
Which, and going back to the things that I first noticed, because as we talked about, this was my first go around at all of this, and I would notice people like rushing. I got to get out of here. I got to get back to work. I got child support. I got bills. I got a family to take care of. Whatever it is. And I just seen it so often, and people would be back. Sometimes people would be back in the same building while I was still there going through, and that was one thing when my gut would get anxious when I'd think about my significant other or my family or friends or the concerts I'm missing out or whatever it is. Like I remember just so vividly feeling that twist and turn in my gut of impatience.
Well, you're not leaving a settled life. You're taking a break in the midst of usually a lot
pure
of
chaos.
Yeah. So that would be hard for anybody to walk away and to not be thinking about how you're going to make it better or how you're going to go forward. And also, I think people want, and you do feel better pretty quickly, right? When you go to Horizon Village, don't you start to feel better pretty quickly? And I think there's a tendency to want to think, I got this, I got it. I got it.
You're in that, what do they call the bubble? They call it. Yeah, you're in that rehab bubble.
Yeah. But, you're otherwise, kind of just a regular healthy person that when you have a little bit of time and distance, a break, if you will, you're going to feel better. Your mind's going to clear. You're going to settle down.
I mean, we didn't have to worry about cooking food. We had food ready for us. I mean, the stress was
the
definitely
food?
up. Better than the place I was at before.
That's good.
That is a fact. Yeah, the place I was at before, that was the state place, was a little rough on the food there.
What about the work? Did you work out when you were there?
I did. Yeah, yeah. I need to get back doing that more, but I've stuck with my yoga. That is one thing that helped me. But Diane and Jordan over there, they're two amazing badass people who I absolutely loved and I miss, and I need to go visit them actually.
They just finished up Humor Week, which was,
really?
It's like an event a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I got back into the basketball. I was doing yoga every day, because when I first got there, I was thinking, all right, I'm 21 again. That's what I had in my mind. I'm like, I'm going to go play basketball. I'm going to get this going. And I think I pulled a muscle in my back first time I played basketball. And I was out for 3 weeks. I couldn't do anything for 3 weeks almost. And finally that got better, but I was doing yoga and my knees. I remember having so much trouble with my knees. But the yoga took all that away. So I fell in love with yoga in there.
Oh, that's awesome.
I wish that was one thing I wish they had. They had the morning stretch, which wasn't yoga, but I wish they had a certified yoga teacher there.
Yeah.
That was the one thing.
Periodically we have.
They have somebody come.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got into, the beautiful facility out there.
Good.
Absolutely. As you heard, you listened to that podcast with my mom, they were just the family programs.
Right.
They were super involved.
we're building a family center because
Really?
the gym is not great, right? Acoustically,
No,
you
no.
you know.
I've not only talked, I've played music in there, yes.
Yes. So we got a big grant from Blue Cross Blue Shield and, some other funding that we're cobbling together, and we're going to build a kind of an auditorium and family center.
Is it going to be in Sanborn? Or
It's going to be right there.
Awesome.
Kind of where, did you play baseball? Were you there in the winter?
No, I was there. I came in, it was in the middle of the summer.
Okay,
right
so
after.
the baseball field used to be right next to the parking lot near Horizon Village where
Yes.
you were. The family center is going to be there.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I know. Really
that's
excited
great
about
news.
that.
Maybe I'll have to go back so my mom can come check it out.
Yeah. Well, haven't you? You guys have been back, right?
Yeah, we did.
You went back
my
to talk to the
mom and
family.
sister and I, we all went out and to all the buildings and all the family members. We did a big,
Yeah.
spoke for about an hour there.
So you and I have been talking about how important it is, your perspective, your voice. So, so much more important in so many ways than ours. We have the tools that can help people, but you have the hope and inspiration that can make people believe that this can, they too can kind of live a different life, and it doesn't have to be chaotic, and they can stop using drugs.
Yeah, and I definitely, because there's something that since the moment I was in, even in jail, when I would hear about people just in and out, being recycled through the system and just can't figure it out. And I mean, that was the first thing I became obsessed with. When I become obsessed with a thought or something, whether it's, one of my two favorite philosophical debates are free will determinism and what is truth, pretty much. So, but when I get obsessed with something, I just dig into it. And one of my obsessions has been what is it that it cannot be figured out, that people just keep coming back and coming back. And it drives me nuts because it's just so different for everybody. And
Do you have any insight on that?
The conclusion so far that I've come to is there is somewhere along the line there is a lack of self-awareness that people don't have, that are keeping them. And again, I say this humbly because I am constantly looking at, is this action going to take me down or take me back? And you constantly have to be aware of that. And somewhere along the line, there's somebody to work on, because obviously, addiction itself is the easy thing, essentially the easy thing to stop.
Yeah.
It really is. As weird as that sounds, it's what has caused me to use this drug compulsively and all the time that's ruining my life. What is it that's causing that? And that is different for everybody. As far as I know, it's this lack of self-awareness where people aren't aware of what that is and don't have the drive, because it's scary. There's like the Zen quote of, if enlightenment was easy, everybody would tell their brother.
Right.
And it's not easy to become introspective and look at the crappy parts of yourself. And I think that's where it kind of the drop-off point is.
I think it's it's simple, of course, as you said, but it's
Not
so
easy.
hard.
Yes.
In some ways, I think we overcomplicate it because, and I mentioned to you, it might be a good podcast to do with one or two people that have
Relapsed several times
because, relapse is so common and so much a part of people's process often. One thing I do know, and I've been doing this for a long, long time, is evidenced by 1986 when I started here, and it wasn't my first job. One thing I know is if people keep coming back, they will get it. I know that for a fact. Sometimes we can only hear a certain part of the truth, and it takes a while sometimes for people to hear the rest of it. So, some of the first things people might be able to hear is, this is a problem. Got that. But the rest of it then, the whole package, what follows is, and as a result, I'm going to have to live my life differently. And as a result, I'm going to have to make different choices and go to different places and maybe have different friends. It's a big package.
It is. And take it again outside of addiction to human beings in general.
Yep.
You see there's this lack of self-awareness. There's just a certain group of us who have used drugs to not want to be aware of these things that we have to fix in our life. But you see it all over. People use shopping, television, I'm just going to watch TV all day so I don't
Video
have to think about my
games.
problems. Video games. I mean,
Social media.
the list goes on
Yeah.
of things that humanity does to stay away. And that's why there's a stigma with drug addicts. Even though this person over here is doing the same thing, sitting in front of Netflix and not doing anything to help and, evolve their own individuality, they're doing the same, but they will judge me because I'm using drugs to not do that as well.
Yeah, that whole judgment thing.
And that's, they have it, and the stigma, because there is a stigma with it.
So it's interesting. Why is there more of a stigma with drug addiction than there would be with somebody who's a video games addict, right? Why? Why is that?
I mean, mainly I would have to say is because of the behaviors that have come from the actual addiction itself. The breaking into places, stealing, robbing, lying, manipulating. So, I mean, that's obviously where it's come from. And then there's the whole, the society has portrayed drugs in general as if they're completely negative. And there's obviously, when you sit down and think about it, there's a lot of positives that drugs have done. Now, the negatives completely outweigh the positives when it becomes a very, obsession. But I mean, they're just, it's been mainly, obviously, it's behaviors. Yes, we'll keep it at that.
Well, we'll keep it at that. But, for the history of mankind, mood-altering chemicals, whether they're available legally or illegally, have continued to kind of daunt mankind.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, this problem with how to manage those. So I'm not hopeful about the legalization of marijuana, and we don't need to have that big political conversation, because look at how we did with nicotine. Alcoholism is still the number one addiction, and more people die of alcoholism-related problems than drug addiction. So we have these kind of two legal substances that are killing people at
very
huge rates.
Yes.
And we're going to add another one into it? I don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people's point of view on that is it is like the lesser of all the evils that are out there. And I really feel like I personally feel that all drugs should be decriminalized. And we should take more of an effort to go into, what do we do to help? When I was in jail, I just...
Decriminalized is different than legal.
Legalized, absolutely.
And I agree with you about decriminalization. The problem with legal is the message that we give people that it's recreational use is safe. And over and over again, it's really not safe. It's not safe for children. It's not safe for families. It's not safe for the community.
I think it's fair to say anything in excess is not safe, but particularly when you're doing something physiologically that affects you physiologically over and over again is even worse for you.
Your mood and your brain and your body chemistry.
I was joking with my mother the other day because somehow along the way I sent out when I was at Horizon Village, I sent out proper paperwork for my child support saying I'm on social services and doing this, but somewhere along the way I got lost and they never received it. So I found out the hard way in Cheektowaga that my license was suspended and got arrested. This was only a few weeks ago. And so we got arrested. I'm like, what do you mean? My license is suspended? What? Took care of it and everything got taken care of. But as I was, and in the system, a part of it still, obviously. And I'm like, I was joking with my mother. I was like, the more I'm in this, I'm starting to understand anarchy more and more. Like, I'm getting this. Because there's so many things. And when I was in jail, I remember walking down to go to rec, and they had the bars, people behind bars. And I remember just thinking, like, that's it. Somebody does something wrong. You set them in this seat right here for a certain period of time, do nothing, open it up after a certain period of time, let them go back to their thing.
Yeah.
And it's such a bunch of crap that they want people in the system, recycle. And it was the most frustrating thing to me, and you almost felt helpless.
Well, you wonder how we don't come up with a better solution than that. I don't know much about your criminal background, but I'm assuming you were not a violent person who was hurting others.
Well, technically, it was a violent.
Was it?
Because I broke into a residential home. But
Oh.
yes, no, there is no.
They considered that a violent
They
crime?
do a violent felony.
Oh.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, technically, that's what people always say to me. You have a violent felony?
Yeah.
You have technically it's a misdemeanor now, but
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
people look at me all the time. You have a violent? Oh, yes, believe it or not, I do. I think I've been in one physical altercation my 33 years of existence.
Right. Well, we need to the United States can do better. We can do better with hunger. We can do better with health care.
So many things.
We can do better with education, and we can do better with criminal justice.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like sometimes we stop trying because the problem is not readily apparent, which is the other reason why I think it's important that people like you keep talking.
Mm-hmm.
Because we need to change the world or a little piece of it, right? Nobody should go hungry. Everybody should have access to health care. We should treat people with mental illness and addiction in a way that helps them stop the problem and move on in their life instead of punish it and throw them in jail. Jail is not a place for somebody with a substance abuse problem.
No, and I even think of
or mental illness,
yeah.
by the way, and I have to say that.
Or just, I even look at like any crime in general. If we're not helping these people to change the way they think or the way they act or
Right.
what their beliefs and whatever it is. The more I looked into social psychology and how much we're a product of our environment, I always thought about the kid who grew up without a dad, his mom's a crackhead or her mom's a crackhead, and you find acceptance in this gang down the street. Well, of course you're going to live and die by that. And you can't blame that person for doing that either.
Right.
So how do we change the thinking? How do we change the mindset of this person to start acting in different ways so they're not recycled into that system? So I even was thinking of any crime in general, whatever it may be.
So, of course, when I hear you talking about that, prevention is more important than the fix afterwards. So what is our community doing for our children as they grow up? What is, the social service system, the educational system? Our communities are changing a lot. I just heard on the news this morning that church, right? So neither one of us is a churchgoer, right? People that are affiliated with a church or synagogue or, any institution of religion is at a record low. Well, of course it is. But even though we might not believe, there was something good about that sense of community that people had, and the care that they gave to the members of their community. We've got to find a way in our communities to replicate that in every neighborhood so that every kid has that sense of connection and caring and, kind of bigger reach because, people may not get what they need at home.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to... My mom's a teacher, my sister's a teacher, and both are pretty much, inner city Buffalo school teachers. And that's some of the biggest, problems. I remember picked my mom up from work one day and then got my sister. She had this big meeting all day and conference thing. And she talked about how the people there were saying, we have to do more and not be so quick to suspend kids. And we got into the discussion in the car. It just feels like an impossible task when you have parents who don't care, who are children themselves, and they act worse than the kid does in school, and it almost feels like this helpless task, like it's impossible.
Say, I don't know that they don't care. I think that people have a lot of problems and barriers. I want to believe nobody has a child to hurt them, really. That's not the intention. If you go forward with people are doing the best that they can, it doesn't translate into what needs to be done. But same as you don't want stigma for, what you've done, and I think there is a stigma about those parents that are unable not unwilling, unable to take care of their children. But then what? Then what do we do? What happens to that child? So, that's not... I'm working on my little part of the world here.
Yeah,
that's not my part of the world. But
I think it all, in its essence, I think it does relate.
Right. I don't meet people here, for the thousands and thousands of patients and families I've met. I don't meet people here who wanted all those bad things to happen in their life. That stuff happens. And people are unable often to figure out how to not continue that. They know it's wrong even sometimes, right? You know it's wrong if you're doing drugs and you're leaving your 8 and 9-year-olds at home alone to kind of fend for themselves, but you make it okay in your crazy thinking, and you know what some of the crazy thinking is about.
I absolutely do.
Right? It'll be okay. I left that for them. I won't be that long. I'll get right back. And it doesn't work out that way.
I mean, I do. I remember walking down to my girlfriend's house crying because I did not want to go back in there and take something to pawn it to go get some heroin. I'm crying, and I share this with people all the time. Like, I was crying because I did not want to do it, but I did it.
You did it.
I mean, that's how crazy it is.
That's crazy.
It's insane, yeah.
You're crying because you don't want to do something like that, but yet you're compelled to do it.
Yeah.
So that is really probably the best understanding of how people are not bad. I'm not saying that there's not bad people out there. Of course there are, but generally that's not what's happening. It's just people who are unable to make a different decision. And then all those things start to compound, and we have the problems that we have. If you look at mental health issues, what's happening with teenagers and their mental health concerns, the drug problems in our community, we're at a tipping point, a real crisis of, people not doing okay. So, we've got record high suicides and suicide attempts. I wish I would have looked up the statistic of the, kids who report who are in high school, anxiety, stress, and depression, and who have thought about suicide. Bullying, right? That's happening at all different kinds of grade levels, middle school, sometimes grade school. Just kind of a meanness and exclusion of certain kids. These are problems that are way different today than they were 40 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've often wondered, like, why it's become such a problem. And I don't know if is it because of technology? Is it, sometimes I've been in my head wondering, is it just because is it escalated more because the population's gone up, or compared to the population then, is it really that much more?
Are we hearing more about it?
Yeah,
right.
Is it easier to hear about things? I mean, today I could hear about a bombing that went on over in, China within 3 minutes of it happening.
Right.
I mean, literally 10 seconds after it happened, I could see it on the internet. So is it because of that? So I often wonder, what is the problem really going up or not?
Well, with all of our connectedness, do we have a sense of community and family?
That's ironic when you think of that. Something that has made us more connected is almost pushing us farther apart.
It feels that way. I'm sure that you should interview somebody who knows about that, because I would be interested in hearing their perspective. I guess a social scientist and maybe an educator too. What do they think? A religious leader. It would be solve this problem for us, Sean.
Yes, I will. I'm getting right on that.
Or at least explore it first.
My hope is that this one with you will open more doors to have people that are
great
out there more and higher up in things, and like teachers, professors, whatever it is.
So we'll stir the sauce.
That's what I'm hoping this will do.
We'll stir the sauce and ask a lot of questions so that somebody out there will want to help answer them.
We'll get on there. That's my goal.
Okay, good.
And my hope for this is to be able to, obviously my ultimate goal is just to help whoever is willing to listen and who this can help. I have found, like I said earlier, it's helped more family members. At least I shouldn't say that. That's the most feedback I've gotten is from family members, just like thanking me. Oh, so much. I mean, a girl messaged me after I did one with my girlfriend, Christine, the most recent one, and she was just thanking me. I am going through the exact same thing. Like, I love him, and I need to find a way to be more understanding, but at the same time, like, that line between enabling and helping is so thin. Like, people just, don't know about it. That's the main thing I've heard from, I've sat down with a couple who lost a son to an overdose, and, they just said, educate yourselves as much as you can to learn those lines. Because even in the beginning of my recovery, like, I have a lot of help. My parents helped me out so much. My girlfriend helps me out so much. But after they have gotten educated, I've had to earn this help. They've had to see the hard work. They've had this, have the trust getting built more and more.
Your mother is so smart. I was listening to her podcast and like I want to package her up because and she kept saying, I know I'm not supposed to do that. Like she knows exactly now. And she can see the before and she knows how and I'm like, how did she get there?
I think the loss of 2 children had a big play in that with her. I think that was all 4 of us, because there was the 6 of us at one point. And I think, me losing brother and sister and my parents losing 2 kids, if you pay attention enough, you can learn greatly from it. And you can let it do positive things in your life if you allow it to.
Yeah.
And as much as, I see how it's screwed my parents up, I see how it's brought us all together as well and how we've all have learned from it. And I wrote a blog on that. I wrote a blog, my paradoxical addiction, because I've done, I've stated, like, I've done these messed up things to people. I've hurt a lot of people. I've lied, I've manipulated, I've stolen. I've done some crazy things that are just totally effed up. But at the same time, if I didn't do these things, I would not be becoming this incredible man that I'm becoming today. I would not have developed this self-love, this acceptance, this confidence, this forgiveness for myself. I don't know if it would ever came.
Do you think about how it started for you?
With my addiction? My main point, actually, I was just sitting down with a friend having coffee yesterday, and I've done this with my counselor over and over again. Your brother and sister died, and it had to be a reason why you were using. I'm like, it's not. I've spent 13, 14 years figuring that out. My biggest thing was from my divorce. That's where all my guilt came from. I let out of feeling bad because I told this woman, like, I just woke up and I'm like, I shouldn't be happy when you're gone and sad when you come back. There's something wrong here, and I can't do this anymore. And I'm sorry, I made this mistake. And I felt so bad from that. I met her, she's from Florida. She had no family in Buffalo. So out of this guilt and this shame of failure, and I let her leave to Florida. And doing that with my kids to my family was something that I had to deal with. And I couldn't. It felt great when I was using drugs. I felt, I didn't care about it. It didn't bring me down. But I was at a point where I could be in the greatest mood, and I'd walk in and see, my girlfriend's 2 nephews playing, and it just immediate would drain me. Just I could sharp pain in my gut, my heart, and immediately was just reminded of all this pain that I've caused people. So that was definitely one of my biggest things. And not to mention, I always said, the one thing that I was great at was I loved being a dad. Like watching TV with my kids, cooking for them, cleaning up, changing their diapers, bathing. I loved doing that. I loved playing with their toys with them. That was one thing I was good at. That was tough. It took me a long time. That was my main.
So a sense of loss, but not just your brother and sister, right?
Yeah.
But your kids, and their mom.
And that's the one thing I told my parents. Like, my kids are alive, and they're just in Florida, and I can Skype with them and just watch them grow up, and how hard that was for me. It was like, I can't imagine what you 2 have gone through. Having to put 2 of them in the ground is insane. Yeah,
horrible.
And still be standing, still be around, and
right. Wow.
It's been impressive. My parents are both pretty impressive human beings.
Yeah, I was impressed with your mom. Definitely.
Yeah, she's an incredible woman. So, but that was definitely one of the things that one of my main 3 things I have found of what were the main cause of my addiction.
And so what were the others?
The other one was, again, like I've shared with you, that having that introspection, but that no self-love and acceptance. Like, I hated myself. I just thought I was a terrible person. And the other one was...
Always?
I think more so, I would say I became very, all right, I'm going to help the universe, I got to work on myself. When I became that person, stopped watching sports, and I went 2 years without ever watching television, just read psychology, philosophy, just theology, whatever it is, to improve myself, how to make myself a better person, to fix myself. And that was about 25, 26. And so from then on, I would say, it was this list of, wow, you are a piece of shit.
Yeah. So all that introspection actually led you to a bad and dark place.
Yeah. And ironically, though, I think is what has been my biggest advantage, because I've had this self-awareness throughout my recovery. To be like, no, I know where this is going to lead as soon as this word comes out of my mouth. And just to have the self-knowledge that I think is one of the biggest things missing, in recovery.
Yeah.
That people need to become aware. But again, like I said, if enlightenment was easy.
Did you feel like when you were at Horizon Village that you had enough time or had an opportunity to really kind of take that inward journey? And
Yes, definitely. I had a lot of time.
was that something that was structured in or that you did on your own? Is that available there?
That was probably something I did more on my own. Mm-hmm. One of my biggest things at Horizon Village was I cannot go into a damn room without a television being on.
Yeah.
That was one of my biggest things. Like, I don't know how I would have been there in the winter. I was so thankful that I could go outside and just be at peace and be alone. So that was one of my biggest things.
Back in the old days, at the beginning of Horizon Village and rehab, there was all kinds of restrictions around things like television, music, never anything to tune out. Now we actually allow the computers to be used. That was a big discussion point. Yeah, I mean, those are hard things. People want that escape of television. They want quote unquote normal in their residence. But I'm interested in your perspective on that.
Yeah, it's tough because I think it can be helpful as well. And I've tossed this around the entire time at Horizon Village, the B word and balance. I used that in every group, and I said, I'm just going to use the B word here. So before I left, I had the counselors saying, it's the B word, and I mean, that's such an important, I think, but when you put that on people themselves to develop their own balance, it's very difficult.
It is.
People would rather sit in front of the TV all day and watch Netflix and all that. So I don't know how you find that can get that balance in there. That's a very difficult task to do.
And to create an environment that people want to stay in.
And that's where you need. You want, all right, I want them to feel more at home. They can get on the computer, listen to music, watch YouTube videos, get on Netflix, whatever it is. But yet you want them to engage
in the community
and everything. And that's a tough task. It's not easy.
It's hard to not engage in a community, though, of 50 people in a small space. When you have to eat together, you have to do tasks together.
Yeah, I guess to put it better, the right kind of engagement. Where you want people to become, again, more introspective, more self-aware. How do you get them to develop more self-knowledge?
Right.
So that they don't end up back here. And that's a hard task.
It is. And some people are ready for a lot of self-knowledge, and some people are not.
No.
And I think that's true in the general population. But some people are struggling with some pretty big stuff, and the need to check out as opposed to check in.
Important sometimes.
Important. And, check out without drugs. Unfortunately, television works. Music works, right? That's why people... And even social media works to a certain extent. It's just how much, right? From the B word.
The B word.
We should have a little sign.
Should get T-shirts made up.
My son actually says the same thing. He always tells me he has balance.
Yeah, that's huge. Next time you're at Horizon Village, say the B word.
The B word.
And I bet you every counselor there, at least that was there when I was there. All right, and well, we have done over an hour here.
Oh my gosh.
It's insane how quick this goes.
Yeah.
And this was a very badass time, so I'm greatly appreciative of your time.
I'm so appreciative of what you're doing with your podcast. And
yeah, I hope it keeps growing.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
We'll do what we can.
And we have to have another one of these in the future, for sure.
That would be great. I'd love that.
Because this went too quick.
Okay. That would be great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. All right, guys. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed that one. It was awesome to get to know Anne, and it was awesome to get to really, truly know the leader of Horizon Health and how badass of a human being she is. And everybody at Horizon Health, I feel, is lucky to have her as their leader. So get on our website. Let us know what you thought about that episode. Fill out a contact page as always. You're probably sick of me hearing me say that. And get on Facebook. We have Facebook group Room 9 Podcast, at Room 9 Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Check us out. Give us feedback, please. Send us messages either on the website or social media, whichever one you prefer. And I will be talking to you guys next week. As always, you're the best. I love you guys. Thank you for listening. And take care of yourself. Stay positive. Keep encouraged. When you're down and out, learn from it and press on. All right. Later.